Alright guys, and welcome to the first video where I'm going to be talking about topics which are actually relevant to real life football. So what we're going to be talking about today is the whole managerial saga issue, sacking at Wolves. And obviously it's been going on for a couple of weeks now since McCarthy got sacked, and nothing's really been solved from it. I mean, no one's been appointed yet. The assistant, Terry Connor, is going to be in charge for the match against Newcastle at the weekend, even though Jez Moxey was under the impression that they'd have someone appointed by now, but it's still not the case. So basically, as we know, McCarthy was sacked the day after the 5-1 derby loss to West Brom, because I think with his poor record up till then, mixed with the fact that they lost 5-1 to their bitterest rivals, I don't know, I'd like to say there was like, basically, it was kind of hard for the board because there's no real option. It's like, you kind of feel like you'd have to do it for the fans, but personally, I don't think that they should have sacked McCarthy because, I mean, the run he was on wasn't worthy of Premier League management, and like I understand that. I mean, I think it was 22 games, 14 points, and that isn't a good enough record. I wouldn't want a manager with that kind of record managing my club, and in that way of things, he deserved to go. I mean, I can't think that he'd have many complaints if you just put the statistics on the front of the table, like just in front of him. He can't really complain. But if they would have sacked him earlier, I think it would have been a lot better. So if they'd basically addressed, they've saw that they needed someone else to kickstart their season, and they addressed the problem in January, for example, or even earlier, maybe like at the turn of the new year, or just before the squad broke up for Christmas for a little while, or something like that. They could have got hold of someone who've actually like quality. So they could have got hold of Martin O'Neill, they could have got hold of Mark Hughes, because basically what it's from having Mark Hughes and Martin O'Neill available on the market. It's gone from that to having, well, they did have Neil Warnock and then Steve Bruce available on the market, and the gap and the gulf in quality between those managers, I think, is like massive. Because Martin O'Neill, I mean, you can see at Sunderland what like a ridiculously good job he's done for them, and then Neil Warnock, I'm not trying to say that he's a bad manager, because he's obviously got the credentials to just show how he is a manager who can get teams promoted, and that's why Leeds have signed him up, and that's why Leeds have gone with him. But yeah, it's I don't know. I think personally, I don't mean this as like offensively to Wolves fans, but I think that the Wolves squad, quality wise, is probably among the bottom three. Well, actually, it possibly could be the worst team in the Premier League, except maybe like Wigan, because they've got no players of any like amazing quality. I mean, the only players of quality that Wolves have, I think, in my opinion, are Hennessy. He's an amazingly good keeper. Fletcher is a very good striker, and Matt Jarvis can be a quality player, but this season he just hasn't been consistent enough. And then there are other players, I mean, like Roger Johnson. At the start of the season, he wasn't performing, but he's picked up his performances a little bit recently. They've loaned him Basong, which I think was a really good signing because he's a solid defender. Other players have upped their game. I mean, like Carl Henry has upped his game in the Premier League. Stephen Ward has upped his game in the Premier League. But still, Wolves, I think, remain a team who are basically, they're prepared to work hard, and that's where they get results. I mean, they didn't beat a lot of the top four sides last year from just turning up. They put in a lot of like hard graft. I mean, you look at Stephen Ward always puts in like a hard shift. Like Foley and I don't know, Zuba, whoever it is that will play in defence, will put a shift in. I mean, like Elakobi popped up with a couple of goals. He'll always, I mean, I know he's on loan to Notts Forest now, but he'd always put in a shift and try and do his best for the team. Stephen Hunt and Doyle last season pretty much like epitomised Wolves' approach, because they would prepare to just like they'd just chase lost causes basically. And unfortunately, Doyle hasn't really hit form this season, because he in the start, like the first half of last season, he was like banging a few goals, working really hard for the team. You couldn't really complain what he was doing, but now I think it's kind of left how I don't know. For me, like I said, Hennessy and Fletcher, they're two like quality players, and then Jarvis can be, but then apart from that, because of the stadium changes, like changing the North Bank, it's just kind of scuppered them a bit, because they wouldn't have as much money to spend on transfers. And I think what they should have done at the start of the season, just forget filling, like the stadium, they always filled it. So obviously, you can look to extend your stadium, make it bigger, get a bit more money in. But it seems stupid to do that when your team's Premier League status isn't secure. So say, for example, if you were Stoke and you kept filling, like completely selling out your stadium and there's room to expand, then yeah, go for it, because they are pretty much an established Premier League side now. I mean, they're playing in Europe. They're probably going to finish 10th, I'd imagine, maybe a bit lower because of all the games they've had to play due to Europe and blah, blah, blah. But like a team like Stoke, if they needed to expand, you could see why they'd do it. But with Wolves, it's like they could go down to the Championship, and then would they be able to fill that stadium? Because I don't think they would. I mean, the money surely would have been better spent investing in the squad, so you're not getting in like your 500,000 signings like Eggert Johnson. You're not bringing in like just players who can't come in, make an impact, play well in the Premier League. I mean, McCarthy, I just think he was the man for the job because he's passionate, he'll get his best out of his team. He's been at the club since like 2006. He knows the team inside out, really. He'd know what's best for the team. And I mean, he had been accused of just picking his favourites, so he'd be picking, always pick Cole Henry. He'd always pick Dave Edwards, who's another player who's just a bit of a workhorse. He'd always pick Stephen Hunt up until this season, and fans had a bit of an issue with that because he'd always play those players. But yeah, I just think that you're looking at people like managers who are free agents at the moment. You look at Steve Bruce. I think he's quite an average manager because I mean Sunderland always had a bit of money to spend, but yet never really built on, like season to season, they never really built on anything. I mean, he brought in quality players, like he brought in McLean, he brought in Sessegnon, he brought in some good deals, like he brought in O'Shea and Brown together. He brought in just ex-Man United players like Richardson, Bardsley. I mean, he's got Gardner, Larson. He's got a lot of good players at his disposal, but they never really built, which was a bit strange, really, because they're bringing in good players like year on year. I mean, I remember they were paying like $5 million for like Lorik Chana, who's never he played a tiny bit for him last season, and then he was off. And they're paying like good money, and never really seeing the rewards for it. So Martin O'Neill's obviously gone in there. He's a great manager, can do brilliantly with that team. But with Wolves, as I said, like if they got in Bruce, I think they'd do worse, to be honest, because he's an average manager, managing an average team, and I don't know whether he'd be able to get that organisation and work rate out of the current Wolves side. Some other sides like Alan Kirbishley is another manager in the mix, and he did a good job at Charlton like many years ago. He did alright at West Ham as well. But Wolves seem to be offering a short-term deal, so they're basically offering, come to us until the end of the season. We'll basically pay you a bonus, please keep us up, and then you can go. Basically, I think that's what they're offering. And like managers like Kirbishley, I mean, he's been out the game for ages. He's not going to be interested in coming for like a few months. He's going to want like a 2-year deal or something like that. I mean, other managers that are going in for it, like Roy Keane is pretty, like, I don't see, like Roy Keane, I wouldn't say is a Premier League standard manager. Lee Clark from Huddersfield, he got sacked. I mean, he's in the mix, but he's pretty unproven. I mean, he's a relative nobody. You've got, they tried to speak to Gus Poyet, but I think Brighton just rejected the approach. If they would have got him, then it would have cost them $2 million anyway, which is a bit ridiculous. Apparently there were like rumours of Brian McDermott, the Reading manager, not Redditch, the Reading manager. But he signed a new deal at the club now, so he's staying put. Chris Hughton said he's staying put, who was another possibility. Ian Holloway is up there, but I do think that Ian Holloway will stay loyal to Blackpool. I just get that impression from his personality that he'll want to finish what he's doing because Blackpool are kind of pushing for playoffs again. But you never know. I mean, personally, I think Ian Holloway would be the best manager out of the current scenario that Wolves could get because he's got the character and he's like players are prepared to work hard for him. I mean the Premier League, Blackpool last season, I know they went down, but they've definitely made a very good fight of it considering the players they had. And Wolves are in the same sort of position where compared to the rest of the league, they haven't really got that team on paper compared to like, I'd say like West Brom, for example. I know it's not the best comparison because they're rivals, but I mean West Brom have got some good quality players, and Wolves are relying on like the goals of Fletcher and the goalkeeping of Hennessy to make big differences in games. And yeah, I think they're just lacking in too many places, especially like they haven't really got a very good left back. I mean, Stephen Ward does the job, but I don't know whether he'd do a better job in a more advanced role. To be honest, he played quite well in like left midfield. He even played up front against Liverpool last season and managed to bang one in. I don't know whether his talent would be a bit better used in a more advanced role. But like they haven't really got a very good right back. I mean, Zubar was out injured from when he got injured in the match against Arsenal when they drew. Obviously they lost Frimpong. I think that was a massive loss, to be honest. They haven't really got a right. I mean, like Stearman's poor. Kevin Foley's never really established himself in the side. And I don't know. I just think with any of the managers, I think personally, I mean, leave a comment below who you think they should sign up. But I think Ian Holloway, because his like character, I think he'll be able to get the best out of what I personally think is not a great side. So obviously, it is worth it for the comedy value as well. I mean, obviously his interviews, as McCarthy's were like entertaining. Like, obviously there's that side of him which is always a benefit. But yeah, I personally think that McCarthy should never have been sacked because he can get the best out of what's currently there, and I can't see who they're going to bring in of any particular reputation, to be honest. But yeah, that's my opinion. Feel free to leave yours in the comment section below, or leave any suggestions what you want me to talk about. And yeah, that's my opinion on the whole Wolves saga. Yeah, basically, I think Wolves have messed up big time, to be honest. And if they brought in Lee Clark, the board is just going to get crucified because McCarthy has kept them up 2 seasons in a row, albeit by the skin of their teeth, but he has done it. And I think if they go down, they might just turn around to the board, the fans, and think, should we have sacked McCarthy after all he did for us? But as I've said, yeah, that's just my opinion. So I hope you enjoyed the video, guys. I know it's quite long, but hopefully you've enjoyed listening. Feel free to leave a like, subscribe. More of these will be coming out, and I'll speak to you guys later.